Welcome back everybody, my name is Nick930 and we're getting closer each day to this year's E3 conference. I'm hoping we get a lot of new announcements this year and hopefully some old favorite franchises finally see the light again. So I thought it'd be fun to make a top 10 list of some dormant PlayStation franchises that I'd like to see come back with either a new game or a nice remaster like the Crash Bandicoot collection coming out in June. So starting off our list at number 10 is SOCOM US Navy SEALs. SOCOM was a third-person tactical shooter game that dominated the PlayStation Online multiplayer space long before Call of Duty reigned supreme. It featured realistic combat, bullet damage, and encouraged players to work together tactically to come out on top, much like the Ghost Recon and Rainbow Six series. The franchise started in 2002 and their last game released in 2011 with pretty low overall ratings on Metacritic, which explains the lack of desire to make a new one. But it would be great to see an exclusive Sony shooter return to the scene and deliver a tactical third-person competitive multiplayer game that Ghost Recon Wildlands never delivered. Zipper Interactive, the developers behind the SOCOM series, have been closed down by Sony in 2012 for resource realignment, and one of their two projects in the works was a brand new PS4 SOCOM title that we unfortunately might never see again. Number 9, Syphon Filter. Syphon Filter was another third-person shooter game exclusive to Sony consoles that we haven't seen since 2007. It borrowed elements from both Metal Gear Solid and GoldenEye, but still pioneered a lot of the basic third-person shooter designs we still see in games today. And it's a shame Sony doesn't pursue this IP and bring back this stealth action game now that Metal Gear is pretty much falling apart. Sony Blend, the developers behind Syphon Filter, are now currently developing the brand new Days Gone third-person zombie shooter game for the PlayStation 4. Number 8, Croc. Croc was a 3D platformer game that was made available for PlayStation, Sega, and Windows in 1997, and let you play as an adorable little crocodile wearing a backpack as he traveled around a fantasy world, saving furry creatures called gobos from the evil Dantini creatures. The game was colorful and released in the golden age of 3D platformers and was a great addition to a large collection of cartoon mascots for the console gaming scene. While not technically a PlayStation exclusive game, it is still remembered by most PlayStation fans as a major part of the console's platformer library. Number 7, Twisted Metal. Twisted Metal was a 3D vehicular deathmatch game for the PlayStation in 1996, and the franchise saw several sequels as late as 2012. In Twisted Metal, you took control of several different vehicles, each with unique abilities and weapons, and drove around collecting power-ups and blowing up enemy vehicles. It was a great game, especially when played in multiplayer, and with updated visuals and controls, would be an excellent addition to the PlayStation 4 library. The franchise has changed hands several times since its inception, and it's unclear if the franchise is still being considered by Sony anymore. Number 6, Armymen. Armymen was one of my personal favorites back in the day, and one of the first shooter games I even played. In Armymen, you played as green plastic toy soldiers and used all kinds of weapons like assault rifles, sniper rifles, tanks, jeeps, and even flamethrowers as you tried to conquer the Tan Army. It was a simple premise that went from a more realistic setting with deserts and forests to a more silly setting where you would fight on picnic blankets or bedrooms and occasionally had to fight off waves of ants. With the advancements in graphical technology and the potential for online competitive or cooperative play, the Armymen series could be a huge hit and would be a fun game series to go back to. The original developers behind the series, 3DO, have since gone bankrupt and 2K Play bought the franchise in an auction. I would love to see this franchise return along with split-screen competitive play where you can place your Armymen down and try to capture each other's flags just like the good old days. Number 5, PlayStation AllStars. Now, PlayStation AllStars isn't an old game, it's not even that huge of a beloved franchise, but it was an awesome idea and had so much potential to be something amazing. In PlayStation AllStars, you took control of major PlayStation mascots like Nathan Drake or Kratos and battled it out in arenas based on the PlayStation games. The overall design borrowed pretty much every element from the popular Nintendo Smash Bros. Franchise, but did little to improve on it. Had Sony decided to go ahead and make a sequel to this game, I feel as though they could do a lot more with it. They could add a lot more characters, and I think they could actually refine the gameplay and make it a lot more like Smash Bros., which is what pretty much everyone wanted in the first place. Number 4, Spyro the Dragon. With Crash Bandicoot finally returning to the PlayStation after years of being left behind, I wouldn't be surprised if we finally hear about Spyro making his triumphant return as well. Whenever I bring up old PlayStation franchises, Spyro has to be the first game almost everyone brings up, and it's no wonder why. With colorful 3D worlds, a unique character to control, and large levels full of secrets, Spyro was a joy to play and an icon for the 3D platformers of the time. The franchise is currently owned by Activision, just like Crash Bandicoot, and the character has shown up in Skylanders games occasionally, but I wouldn't be surprised if we see a remastered collection of Spyro games in a year or so. Number 3, Resistance. Resistance is a first-person shooter game for the PlayStation 3 console that did very well but never made the jump to the PlayStation 4. It featured unique weapons that all had cool secondary fire functions, like a weapon that could aim and see through walls, or a lock-on tag that could be used to shoot enemies around corners. It also featured some of the biggest enemies in video games and had a cool alien invasion storyline. Unfortunately, the Resistance franchise just wasn't making the funds that Insomniac expected, and they decided to stop making Resistance games. The franchise itself is still owned by Insomniac, but will likely be handed off to another developer in the future. For now, the franchise has been dormant since 2012. Number 2, Ape Escape. Ape Escape was a 3D platformer game that tasked the player with catching monkeys with a net. It sounds ridiculous, and mostly it pretty much was ridiculous, but it was a fun game. You could travel to all kinds of fun and unique locations like prehistoric times or medieval castles and try to find all the hidden monkeys in each level, while also fighting enemies with cool gadgets and getting through some basic platforming sections. The franchise is owned by Sony Interactive Entertainment Japan, and they appear busy with games like Bloodborne, Last Guardian, Knack 2, and Deep Down. Now, before I reveal my top pick, here's a few honorable mentions. And finally, one of my all-time favorite games that I still can't believe hasn't made a comeback to PlayStation, Medieval. Medieval was a third-person action-adventure game where you played as an undead knight named Sir Fortescue as you try and stop the evil warlock, Zorok, from invading the kingdom. The game has a unique Tim Burton-esque theme to it with tons of Halloween-themed visuals and settings, including a floating pirate ship with ghost pirates, an asylum, a haunted forest, and plenty of zombies and graveyards. The game's visuals have not aged very well, and the controls and camera were never the best, but this game's style and concept are so unique it's a shame we haven't seen a remake or a remaster. There was a sequel released in 2000 that received decent reviews as well, and eventually the series resurfaced again in 2005 with a PlayStation Portable release, but we haven't heard anything since. The studio behind the franchise, Sony Computer Entertainment in Cambridge, shut down in January of this year, so it's unclear if we'll ever see the return of Sir Dan. And that's my list of top 10 games I want to see return to PlayStation. What do you guys think? What do you want to see announced at E3 this year? Make sure you leave a comment below, and don't forget to like and subscribe to see more top 10 videos posted by me every week.